Hello, I'm Bonnie Rabikoff, your host for In the Kitchen with Bonnie, and this week we are very pleased to introduce a new feature. It is In the Cellar by Marquee Selections, and with me is one of its owners, Christopher Cribb. Christopher, thank you for inviting us into your wine cellar.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so this is a unique wine distributor. I mean, you are very devoted to organic and sustainable. Tell us how Marquee Selections came to be.
Sure. We set up Marquee Selections a little over 8 years ago, and being based here in Kansas City, we don't have that much wine here. There is wine produced here, but we decided to go out and to form an import company and an export operation down in Australia. We had some ties to some people that were very small wineries that couldn't export by themselves, because in the liquor world, every state is like its own country here. All the different laws between Kansas and Missouri are completely different. So we set up to help them, and in doing so, we developed our own brand, Marquee Australian Wines. And over the course of a number of years, we've decided to move from just doing wines of Australia to wines that have a green, environmentally friendly focus. And specifically, we've gone to other regions outside of that, as Argentina, Italy, like we'll be talking about today, Spain, Portugal, and we focus in on value. Wines that are $10 to $25 retail, so something you feel like you can go ahead and pour at a dinner at your house and feel comfortable with it.
So a great deal of effort has been put into not only the quality of the wine, but the price point, which really makes it accessible to most of us who like to cook and sip wine.
Absolutely. If you start to talk to a winemaker, they'll tell you their best wine, which is their $100 wine, is what you should be buying, but that's a little hard on the pocketbook these days.
For most of us. Okay, so this week, Northern Italy, and why did you choose the Piedmont region and these, in particular, these two wineries?
Sure. We actually have two wines from the same winery.
Okay.
And what we've done is, in the scale of Italy, you think of Italy as a big boot.
Yes.
And we went to the northern half, and we were trying to find specifically one wine, the red wine that I'll talk about in a second, Barbera. Barbera is the third largest grown grape in all of Italy, but it's known for being a little more medium bodied, not quite as heavy as some of the Cabernets. And so we were wanting a medium bodied wine, and so we looked for a winery that did that had a sustainable wine focus, and we found a property that has been around since 1108 AD.
Oh, centuries
old.
Centuries old.
They have their Castello at the top of the hill is the highest point in the Po River Valley. The Po River runs through from there in this part of northern Italy over towards Milan. What they have is all vineyards that come from their castle down the hillsides, and the fruit is all estate grown, and what we really like about them is that they're dedicated to making really quality wines at a value price too.
At a value price. So the red wine we are looking at is Barbera?
Yes, Barbera. This is the 2008 Quattro Leoni Barbera D'Asti. Barbera D'Asti is a specific region. Asti is the city that surrounds.
Okay.
So you'll see several different Barbera D'Astis.
What is the flavor profile of this wine?
Okay, so the first wine, you kind of give it a sniff and think about the flavor profile. It's very much in the red fruits. Cherries. I've heard a lot of people think of Barbera as barberry because it's got so much berry fruit to it. And that berry fruit kind of comes from a cranberry to a blackberry. So depending on the age of the vines, this one has a lot of that blackberry to it, I think. And the flavor profile of it is also medium bodied. So you have that goes down the palate, but it's not so heavy.
It's not so heavy. What would you serve with this wine?
Specifically, this wine, I find it a very versatile wine. You know, red wines that have as much acid as this can go from an everyday, you know, a nice pizza, you know, to something that's got a little more fattiness to it, like a braised short ribs.
So it stands up to butter.
Stands up to butter.
It stands up to the acid of tomato.
Yes, it does.
So pretty versatile.
Very versatile. You know, I think that's why, you know, Italians drink so much of it, and it's, you know, it's produced so much.
It's produced. At what temperature would you serve this wine?
Usually this is a, you know, this is when they say in the cellar, that used to mean bringing it out of your cellar, which roughly is about 68 degrees. That's the room temperature in the cellar. And so if you bring it up, you know, a regular air-conditioned place is usually about 75, 80 degrees. And so at room temperature would be what I would do. But if it's been in a car a little bit, don't be afraid to put it in the fridge for a little bit.
Don't be afraid to put it in the refrigerator. And, and red wine lovers tell me they like just a drop of chill on it.
Well, it does. It really, it kind of cuts back a little bit of that, the alcohol. You know, when wine gets warmer, it tends to get kind of heavy in your mouth and hot.
Okay.
And so that's a nice way to kind of cut that edge off the alcohol.
And this glass, do we want it in any particular shape glass, or are we going to get, you know, are we picky about this?
I'll be a little picky.
Okay, let's be picky.
But the idea is you want a glass that's big enough for your wine, first off. So, you know, if you get the little tiny glasses that you used to have, that's just not enough, because it's not enough of a spot to give it oxygen. So what you want to do is give it a swirl, give it some oxygen, and that kind of just opens it up, gives it a little area to breathe.
Okay,
and
so
I think the
would
size,
this be a wine you would decant then?
You know, I think that I wouldn't decant it right now.
Okay.
You know, it's a 2008, so it's just a couple years old. But if I had this in my cellar for 3 or 4 years, I would probably go ahead and decant it, because what you're going to find is that laying on its side, just like the wines here in the cellar,
are supposed to be.
You'll find that it'll get a little bit more sediment, and so that decanting process will clean that sediment out. No one wants to have a mouthful of sediment.
Okay, Chris, we are still in northern Italy, and
we
have another offering. What?
We do. We have white wine. You know, it's summer. It's pretty hot here.
It is.
And so what we've got is a Monferrato Bianco, and that's a blend of 3 different grapes. It's got Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and Cortese, which Cortese is a smaller, very round grape that is only in Italy. So it gives it a little nuttiness to it. Sauvignon Blanc
is usually a little drier and crisp.
A little more dry, more crisp. You know, sometimes gets all the way up to like a gooseberries, and then the Chardonnay in this wine gives it more body. So
this is complex for a white wine, isn't it?
Yeah, you know that the winemaker concentrates on only doing one white wine at the winery, and so they take all the best grapes that they have. They sell off any extra fruits, and so it gives it something that's got some body, but it's still got a nice acid feel to it. It's got a lot of light citrus flavors to it that you kind of get from that Chardonnay plus the Sauvignon Blanc.
Because usually you're choosing between those 2 wines when you're going to pair, and this. So what would you pair this with? You
know, I would think that this would be a great pairing for something like a nice summer salad that's got a little bit of heft to it. Something maybe it's got some chicken in it, or you know, maybe even salmon. You know, it's got enough that it can cut through something a little bigger than that.
Because of the Chardonnay.
Because of the Chardonnay in there. That would stand up to it regularly, and the Cortese as well. But I also think that this is also a very good cheese wine. You know, a lot of like light, smoother cheeses. You know, thinking about a brie. I have a liking for brie myself, so
this would work. This would work with brie. And what temperature would you serve this wine?
And this one, I go straight out of the fridge is where I usually go. So you know,
pretty chilled.
Yeah, one pretty chilled.
In the 40s.
In about the 45, 50 range.
Okay.
Should be just about what you want. It will warm up after you brought it out, and that's kind of when the wine opens up the most. It gives it the most aroma. When it's really cold, when it's, you know, you put it in the freezer too long, or you've had it in the ice box, it it's just a little tight. And so you want it to breathe just a little bit, but come up a little bit in temperature so that it'll show all of its characters.
Chris, no other group of wines has received higher marks at better prices than the Marquee Selections. What do you attribute this accomplishment to?
Well, thank you. It is really something that we hang our hat on, and the publications like Wine Spectator, Robert Parker have looked at our portfolio, and I think the behind the scenes reality is that we do a lot with the selection process. We
You've
go
handpicked
through,
these wines.
We've handpicked these
You've
wines.
handpicked them.
We've done something where we take these wines and we bring them against the market competition. And in a blind tasting, we have to make sure that we only have selected wines that beat out the current best in show that you would find at your local liquor store. So there's a Barbera D'Asti from Michael Chiarello. You know, we took this Quattro Leoni Barbera, set them side by side, and said, I don't know who it is, blind tasting, and it was the winner. The blind tasting allows us to make sure that it is better than its competition, and so we have followed that with every group of wines that we've brought in, from our Australian beginnings to the Italian wines, and specifically finding things that are hot, that are a little bit different. I mean, when you saw the Sauvignon Blanc, yes, Chardonnay Cortese blend, I've had a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, I've had, tasted a lot of Chardonnay, but bringing those two together, so I think the real difference in having something that's unique, well priced, and is better than its competition has allowed us to stand at the front.
So how can our viewers and our listeners learn more about Marquee Selections?
We have a great website. We've put a lot of work into developing www.marquee.com.
And I'm going to spell that MARQUEE.
.com.
Yes.
That's the right way.
Yep.
2 E's at the end.
Yep.
Or you can give us a ring at 1-888-MARQUEE, MARQUEE.com. We would be happy to help anybody, and even just shoot us an email at info@marquee.com.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for taking such good care with your wine portfolio. It's amazing, and we're very pleased and honored to be with you in the cellar. Cheers to your health. Next week we are going to explore the wines of Portugal. Please join us.